Fire Mountain Aria, written and narrated by Jill Penrod. Chapter 25. "I'm sorry," Trace said. He'd said it 4 times in 200 randoms, and he figured he would keep saying it until Echo could look at him without such fury watching through her focus. Between her anger and the lingering darkness of the coma nightmares, he felt sick and strangely hopeless. What had he done? How would he fix it? "So you've said," she muttered. "How can you still be so angry?" he asked. "It's been 2 days." She glared at him. "It hasn't been 2 days. You woke up 200 randoms ago. For 2 days we waited for you to wake up. We're here, Trace. We've been outside the Jonathan colony for over a day, just waiting for you. What were you thinking? There are 4 of us now. When are you going to stop being so arrogant and just ask for help?" She sat down hard on the edge of Trace's bed, and he cringed. He didn't remember her ever being so angry with him. But that wasn't the worst of it. She was right. He'd taken on the job alone when he had help. He'd always had help. He'd been surrounded by eldsingers his whole life, but he always took the worst jobs himself. Was it arrogance? Once, yes, maybe. But now? He didn't know. "I didn't think," he said honestly. "I knew the colony was in trouble, and I just reacted." "You reacted badly," she said. "We should have moved closer, divided the job, worked as a team. You can't make all our decisions out of your fear, Trace. If Kaya hadn't kept a level head, none of us would be alive." She sighed. "I did the same thing. G and I were willing to give you everything we had. All 3 of us are idiots. We owe Kaya our lives." He closed his eyes and let his senses drift over the foci of the other realm pair. They'd come in to greet him upon waking, but when Echo had entered, her focus filled with fury, they'd fled. Now he felt them in the living room, their foci damaged but healing. They weren't as angry as Echo, but they were angry. G was hurt. Kaya felt a myriad of things, and he knew she was doubting. She had feelings for him, but he'd let her hurt herself rescuing him. He wondered if she would walk away from him. Maybe she would end up with Gianni. What would he do if that happened? "I'll do better," he said. He meant the words, even if he had no idea how to implement them. "Kaya didn't get a chance to tell me what she did. G said she saved us, but they didn't elaborate." "She can do some rudimentary healing with her focus," Echo said. "She also dosed us with Leichnic multiple times, covered us with blankets, and watched over us until we woke up. We scared her, of course, but she liked taking care of us. Her reactions bother me. For her to feel such victory, she really did grow up alone, didn't she?" "Her Amma loves her," Trace said. But yes, she was alone. Her eyesight meant she couldn't participate. She always lived outside of her world. "As did Gianni," Echo said thoughtfully. "Except for entirely different reasons. He scares me a little. He sees more than I want him to see. And he reads foci so well, I feel naked when he's around." Trace nodded. He changed the song, Echo. With his very limited understanding of reed singing, he altered the stamina song to give me more power. I felt it every time he did it. They're both so powerful that it's scary. Good powerful. I'm not envious. No, maybe I am. I hope the Jonathan have some kind of answer for us that allows them to stay." "They don't like the skipper," she said quietly. "I don't know what you're hoping, but they might not be able to spend their lives on the water." "Just like you," he said. He was disappointed. Yes, he'd started to hope all 4 of them could do what he and Echo had done, travel the world and help people. Except he'd ignored all of them so he could nearly kill himself singing. He sighed, not sure how he felt about anything right now. Worse, he wasn't sure how they felt about him. Not good, but was this something that could change? Had he ruined everything? His quest to relive Bougainville without the horrible ending hadn't quite worked for him. "I need to apologize to them," he said quietly. "Yes, you do. Even Kaya isn't sure about you right now, Trace. You forgot us. You didn't include us, and we could have done that rescue in a way that nobody ended up in a coma. Except you have to be the hero." "Echo," he scolded. "That's not it. That's never it." "Maybe you don't think of it in terms of hero," she said, "but you want to do it all. You don't value the skills of those around you. Worse, you don't value their opinions. Unless—" He raised his eyebrows and waited, wondering what else she had to say. Her focus still pounded in anger. "Unless you wanted to leave us. Leave everything. I don't feel that from you. And I thought you liked Kaya and G, but it was so reckless, Trace, so unbelievably reckless." "I didn't mean— I wasn't trying to hurt myself," he said, "or any of you. I knew we were out of time, and I didn't think anything through." "You were back on Bougainville, hoping for a different outcome this time," she said. "I understand, because so was I. Both of us need to apologize, I guess. Neither one of us gave a thought to what we were doing to Kaya and Gianni." "How close are we to the Jonathan?" Trace asked. "Just far enough that we can't feel them, nor can they feel us. I contacted them yesterday and told them we'd come visit as soon as you woke up. I gave them no details. The man I spoke with seemed very interested in talking with us. He knew our parents, but he didn't give me details either." Trace pushed upright. "I should shower and eat, I guess, and apologize." "I'll send them back here. And then, yes, we need to get on this," she said. "Montefallo doesn't have forever. Our equipment was completely wrong about the core breach. What if we're that wrong about Kaya and Gianni's world? I feel like we need to hurry." Trace agreed, and he pulled out of bed, his head pounding, and settled himself on the edge, above the covers, before the other realm pair entered. He didn't want them to see him in bed. He needed to apologize and have them understand what had happened. He didn't want to look weak or pitiful. "You look better," Kaya said. She boldly walked toward him, closed her eyes, and placed her hand on his cheek, then slid it down his neck and just below his collar. He felt relief wash through her. Then she pulled back, her cheeks pink. "Sorry. Oh, I am so sorry. For 2 days I read your focus best with my fingers, and I'm making this worse, aren't I? I don't exactly know what I feel, how it relates to health yet, but whatever I feel is clearer when I touch you." She backed away and stood with her back against the wall. Gianni laughed and sat in the only chair in the room. "You're awake," he said. Gianni was smiling, but only with his face. His focus was messy, shifting with anger and distrust and even some shame. "Shame?" "Kaya did that," G said. "She kept all of us alive." "I know," Trace said. "Kaya, thank you is very inadequate. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did all that alone. I want to be part of a team. I've always wanted that. But I also jump ahead on my own sometimes. I don't quite know how to stop it." "Gianni is nearly your equal," Kaya said. "It's my understanding not many people can say that. Maybe once you believe that, you'll no longer think of yourself as being alone. Maybe you'll feel like part of a team. It hurts to be here, Trace, to be part of your team when you don't think of us as a team at all." The words were insightful, true, and painful. "I know," he said. He didn't know what else to say. He figured his apologies weren't believable right now. He had to prove himself, and that wasn't going to happen here in the Skipper, 200 randoms after a reed coma. "Gee, you changed the song." "I did," he said. "I knew a better way, so I did it." "Thank you," Trace said. "And thank you, Kaya." "I want to learn," she said. As soon as we're done here, I want to train to use my skill for healing." "Yes," Trace said. "We'll make that happen." He looked at G, whose focus was still warped and painful. "G, I'm sorry. You're nearly my singing equal, and I didn't use that like I could have, and I'm sorry." G nodded. The apology hadn't helped, but Trace had to try. "I don't want to go back," G said. "I'm a coward, I guess, but I want to be out here, where I can be useful. Only you have to let me be useful." "I know," Trace said. "From here out, I plan to teach you everything. Both of you. Right now, it's time to see the Jonathan. Let me clean up and eat, and then we can go. Yes?" "What if they don't have answers?" Gianni asked quietly. "Then we try something else," Trace said. "We don't stop until your people are safe." Gianni nodded and let out his breath. "Okay. Hope. It's a rough emotion." Trace had to agree with that. Kaya was standing across the room from him, and G was simply disappointed and disillusioned. Trace had to hope he could fix things, and yes, relying on hope in the face of difficult odds was rough. Point of view change. Although they'd saved an entire villa of people, G hadn't been in a villa home until now, and he hoped he would never have to live in one. Although each villa was larger than Trace and Echo's skipper, it was similar, made of metal and glass, lit with nothing but artificial light. Even the caves had living moss on most of the walls, so the stone rooms where he'd grown up felt more alive than this little box in the ocean. G looked up and found Trace watching him. He knew Trace wanted to make amends, but G didn't know how to feel about Trace at the moment. The man had nearly killed them. Except that wasn't true. Nobody had forced G or Echo to give Trace all they had. Gianni had made a choice. But oh, he found himself angry with Trace for forcing him to make that decision. G had made too many life-and-death decisions in his life. He didn't want to do it here in this world where he barely understood the rules. "Welcome," a female voice said, and an older woman entered the small living area. 2 men followed, one older and one younger. Their foci were foreign, filled with energy, but almost impossible to read. Echo had told him the Jonathan would feel unusual, but he hadn't realized that difference would leave him blind. "Thanks for seeing us," Echo said. "We hope you can help us. We're looking for information. Did you get a chance to look at the samples?" Echo had jumped the samples of rock and fluid to the Jonathan right after they'd arrived. "We did," the older man said. "Why don't we sit and do some introductions?" G had to smile at Echo's impatience. At least she tamped down her anger. G was upset with Trace. Kaya too, and that bothered G, that Trace might have lost the best thing to happen to him. G liked Kaya and Trace together. Their foci together soothed him. They could likely soothe others. But Echo was furious, and that fury had barely begun to dim. Although their foci felt different, the Jonathan trio looked normal. They all had dark hair and eyes, a little like the Scavari, and they dressed like regular Portomarans. The woman introduced herself as Megan, the men as Giorgio and Roberto, and he listened as Echo introduced the 4 of them. When she explained finding Kaya and Gianni in a lost reef, the woman didn't look surprised. "Fallis lenta, then," the woman said, raising her eyebrows at the elder Jonathan. "You think? I didn't think it was true." "I always thought it was true, but I thought the colonies would have died out by now. I hated to think so. I hate to think Odell was so reckless with lives. Nothing in the stories paints him in that light, but the Fallis lenta always seemed reckless and heartless." G watched Echo, who shifted in her seat. She was still angry, still nursing a headache of her own, and impatience and frustration radiated off her focus. "What is Fallis lenta?" she asked with the falsest politeness. Megan smiled. We think there are a handful of reefs like Gianni and Kaya's, she said. She leaned back in her chair. Late in Jake Odell's life, an other realm group came to him for help. His friend Ty Chandler was gone, and Jake was an old man. The story isn't complete, and most of our stories are very complete, so this might be myth. It reads more like myth than truth, but it's also not old. This myth is less than 200 years old. Worlds were dying, for reasons we don't know, and Odell and the other realmers hid colonies from those worlds in empty reefs in and around the dead zone. The colonies were meant to remain hidden, as though whatever harmed their worlds might one day come after them here. It makes little sense and doesn't fit with anything else we know of Odell, or reefs, or other realm interactions at the time. Reefs need one another. They aren't meant to be isolated. Echo took a deep breath. We don't need the history. She gave Gianni a rueful smile. Okay, we'd love to know the true history, but what's more pressing is answers about keeping one of these reefs alive. They weren't terraformed like normal reefs. The fluid that keeps them alive is unknown to us. Some of the rock is unknown to us. We found unknown animals. We hope you can help us because we need to fix the sun to keep the reefs alive. Did our samples turn up any information? We have a few answers for you, Roberto, the younger man said with a smile. We found both the rock and the fluid in our database. The fluid is known as Yoshvaten, although we don't seem to have information on its origin. That means it's very old. The rock is unnamed, and again, we have no origin. Tell us what you need to know about it, and we'll see what we can do for you. For the first time since Trace had wakened up, Echo's focus calmed. She leaned back in her seat and took a deep breath. Thank you. We need to know what happens to Yoshvaten if we recharge with zygotic fluid. Do we have to remove the Yoshvaten? Is that even possible? Or can we safely add zygotic? How do the fluids react together? For years, Montefalo's fluid has been leaking into Tormandu, and we don't know if it's creating something dangerous or stable. I'm happy to run a few simulations, Roberto said. And if you want to run tests of your own, you're welcome to come and help me. Echo said she would do that. Trace, who'd said nothing so far, his head still aching enough to hurt Gianni's head, said he would stay put. Giorgio tilted his head. I met your parents. Your foci share some of their traits. You look like them, too. But right now, we don't read Portomarans well, but all of you feel drained, damaged. We just finished a rescue, Echo said. It was successful, but dangerous. Giorgio gave Trace a long look. You're a powerful singer. I remember your father telling me that, back when you were very young. He came to us a few times for help, early in his life, and he thought you might end up like your ancestor, who was also a very powerful singer. I'm sorry you hurt, but I'm glad to see such a powerful group of you out there helping. Portomare needs your kind of strength and compassion, especially now. G felt Trace shift in guilt and shame when the man said it. Then Echo left with the group, all of them jumping to a nearby villa. Kaya stayed, always intimidated by the science of this world. G stayed as well, for reasons he didn't understand. He loved science and equipment and tests, but he also didn't want to let Trace out of his sight. He was angry with him, disappointed, and yet he wanted to be close. Strangely, he hoped if he stayed close, things would go back to the way they were. Maybe he would feel less of the hard emotions and move back toward friendship. Trace said he hadn't meant to shut them out, but Gianni didn't know if he believed it. Hidden, Gianni said, trying to find some way to fill the strange, tense silence in the room. All of the Jonican had left, so he and Kaya were alone with Trace. We were hidden? From dying worlds? It fits what we were told of our history, Kaya said. We were told we might be the only people left on our world. We were just never told that the world itself didn't survive." "A handful," Gianni said. "So there are other reefs out there like ours, trapped like we were, trapped in dying worlds?" "Your world is dying because the fluid is leaching into Tormandu's roof," Trace said. "But yes, that means other reefs like this could be in trouble. Your proximity to Tormandu might not be your only problem. Perhaps your fluid needs recharged at intervals like our zygotic fluid, in which case all of those reefs might need help soon." "Or they could be dead," Kaya said. "Would your ancestor trap people to die like that?" "Stories we've heard of Jake Odell say no," Trace said. "He was never a man to cause harm. He was more likely to die saving someone than to hurt someone." "Did he die saving people on your world? Perhaps one day we should hear the history of the eldsingers on your world," Kaya said. "I suspect you're eldsingers because of our world," Trace said. "Something in the reefs seems to spur the development of singers. Anyway, no, he died of old age. He had a friend named Ty Chandler, a very powerful folk singer, who helped him. Their friendship was legendary, and 2 of Jake's children married 2 of Chandler's children. Echo and I come from one of those marriages. Chandler also died of old age. Each could be reckless with his own life, but never with the life of the other. After Chandler died, Odell allowed these reefs," Gianni said. "Could he have been reckless then?" "I hope not," Trace said. "But he was still a man, so he was fallible. How would he know exactly how long a reef had to go without a recharge? Perhaps the Phallus Lenta were meant to be temporary. Perhaps the other realmers lied to Odell about the lifespan of their terraforming. I think we need to focus on the facts and on keeping the world alive. The rest is too unknown to worry about." "Except there might be other reefs out there that need help," Gianni said. "Nobody but us knows about them. Nobody but us will ever think to look for them." Kaya's focus pulsed with excitement. "Wait, you think we should look for them? Find lost reefs? They've been lost over 100 years. "Around 150, Trace said. "If I have my dates right. Odell died about 150 years ago." Gianni shrugged. "I don't know. I only know our reef won't survive without help. Our babies don't live. We were fighting to survive, and we were failing. I hate to think others from our realm might be in similar situations, and nobody is planning to help them." "We don't know if they came from your realm," Trace said. "A race strong enough to move mountaintops through realms and drop them in our reefs? That's a crazy amount of power. I don't understand why they needed our help. Our little world with our limited abilities." "Maybe that doesn't matter," Kaya said. "G's right that nobody will find them. But we might not be able to find them either. How much of this world is unknown? Wouldn't they have been discovered already?" "The dead zone is nearly 1/3 of the ocean floor," Trace said. "A lot of it is completely unknown and never traveled. So it's possible viable reefs had been hiding all along." Echo radioed and asked them to join her on the next villa, and Trace put the panel in his lap and then hesitated. "G, you want to do it? I doubt I need to be jumping us yet." "I don't know the song to jump people," Gianni said. "Right," Trace shrugged. "I'm sorry. We need to teach you all the songs. You're strong enough to do anything a singer can do." "Stamina, then? It's a short, easy jump, but I know I'm hurting all of you with the pain in my head, and that will get worse if I sing." Gianni was proud of Trace for thinking of them, and a shift in his focus said Trace knew this and felt G's pride. He hoped Trace was telling the truth, and his fear had made the poor decisions at the villa colony. He hoped Trace wouldn't always think of them as lesser singers or people to be protected. He wanted them to be equals, and he wanted them to be friends. He wasn't sure anything else would do.